I have never seen a burning bush. No voice has ever called my name from somewhere beyond a cloud, doing something like, Amy, go be a minister, or at least clean your room. It's not happened. I have not sat down with anything divine and discussed building an ark or moving to another place and calling myself a prophet. I've not been swallowed by a whale or even ordered a pizza. In a world where reality TV shows like Candid Camera have given rise to MTV's Punk'd, in my life, a voice from the air, I would probably start looking for the camera crew. So what do we mean by a call to ministry? For modern ministers, that answer has changed so much from what it would have been 150 years ago. How does it work? Does some infinite us, our higher self, call direction based on our rational thought? How do we know we're supposed to do this? After seeing the required reading list, a Baptist friend of mine put it very succinctly. She asked in absolute horror, what kind of a person would do this to themselves? As a minister in training, you get asked about call over and over and over and over. You get asked, how did it happen? How were you called? When did you know you were called? And one seminary friend got sick of the process and finally said, look, it is like getting the flu. You know you've got it. You know you are going to throw up. So you might as well just get it over and do it. But do what? As Unitarian Universalists, the concept of call and ministry, they can be valuable. They're valuable language while we try to describe what we do every day, all of us. Called. We are called. We are brought to transformative tasks, transformative ways of being in the world, through the guidance or even the demands of a variety of sources. Anyone can be called to something. Your ministry is that transformative task that you cannot put down. You can't leave it alone. You can't walk away from it. We can be called to transformative action by direct experience. In short, some of us call ourselves, we just know. We just know that's what we're supposed to be doing. We can be called by the words and actions of prophetic people, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of malice and damage, and to confront them with justice and compassion and love. So you can be called by example. Your heroes, your sheroes, those brave people that tell you you can do better, call you. We can be called by exposure to ethical and spiritual wisdom by the world's religions, called by inspiration. Sometimes the story is enough, and we're called to do more. We can be called by religious teachings which tell us to love our neighbors as ourselves. Sometimes we get called by discipleship. We can be called by humanist teaching and rational thought. Sometimes the facts call us. We can be called by the spiritual teachings of earth-centered tradition. Some of us are called by our place in the natural world. And this isn't some kind of cosmic checkoff list where you go through and go, yep, I'm called here, but not here. That one looks good. We can be called for a lot of reasons at the same time. So the million-dollar question for those of you facing a potential new minister is, oh dear Lord, what calls you? It wasn't the dear Lord. I'm 50 as of today, and I got my first call when I was 12 years old. I grew up in rural Kentucky on the edge of the horse communities. My parents had a small farm, and I grew up in what used to be a sundown town. For those of you involved in social justice, you may have heard that phrase. It meant if you weren't white, don't let sundown catch you here. I was the only mixed-race child in my school system, the entire school system. One day, something wonderful happened. I went to lunch in my all-white but me school, and there were a bunch of new kids, 6 or 7 of them. They were kids like me, with dark eyes and dark curly hair. They had olive skin, and I went over immediately to introduce myself. The oldest boy was named Teddy. He had an earring in his ear and a leather cap on his head, and he told me they were Romani. I had no idea what that possibly could be, but I was sure they were wonderful, and it didn't hurt that Teddy was almost 6 feet tall and with what could generously be called a mustache, and he was really cute. I had lunch with them for almost a week. I tried the food they brought in their lunches. I told them I was Middle Eastern. I walked them home. I learned a few of their slang words. And then I came in the next week and they were all gone. Every one of them was gone. And I got home and I asked my adoptive parents where they possibly could have gone. And my parents explained that the people renting them their house had just happened to change their mind suddenly after their kids had been exposed to these kids for a week. They decided that was a bad idea, and no one else wanted them to live nearby that I would understand when I was older. It seemed that people had complained. People had called them names. People had said they were dirty. And I said, but they look like me, Mom. They look like me. Can't we do something? I was sad, and then I was furious, and inside my head, that metaphorical phone started to ring. I didn't answer it, but it kept leaving a message that said, do something. Do something. This isn't fair. I never picked the call up. I kicked the messages under the rug because when you're 12 and everybody else is white, there's not a lot you're brave enough to do. But I became an English teacher and then a nurse and then a nursing consultant, and I was good at systems restructuring. I helped people when I could. And every time I was challenged to really confront injustice, to confront wrong, to transform the world, I listened to that ringing call in my head and I went, new phone, who's this? I mean, I was helping people, right? Surely the world didn't expect me to inconvenience myself at the same time. And then one day my younger sister died suddenly. She was 31. She was a social worker who worked with incarcerated children. I hadn't seen her in a week because I was busy at work, negotiating a large gift to the facility. At her funeral, that call phone kept ringing in my head. And for the first time, I mentally picked it up because I knew that I had somehow gotten life wrong. "12 days after her death, I called the director of a little tiny nursing home in the middle of what neighborhood in 2009 topped Compton in Los Angeles for the title of the most dangerous city in America. I asked the director of that nursing home if she would hire me as a floor nurse, and she knew me as an industry consultant, and she stood there a minute and she said, "You're going to get murdered." I said, "I'll try it anyway." I was at that home for over 6 years. I worked night shift. I learned what the world looked like without privilege or control. I spoke to men and women who had marched in Selma, who had stood with Fred Shuttlesworth and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Some had been the very first black female doctorate awarded at the University of Cincinnati, the first black RN at a Cincinnati hospital, the first black engineer to graduate from Xavier University. A 104-year-old patient had entered West Point in 1919. His father and one uncle had been born as slaves. I got to go to him on the night of Barack Obama's election and say to him, "Sir, we have the first black president." What an honor. The longer I remained there, the more strongly I felt in my bones that call to help in healing the world of brokenness, of the brokenness that accompanies racism and oppression and hatred. I was trying to learn to get rid of the ego that I had developed as a corporate consultant. I learned to listen to the people, to partner with the people. And when I was asked, I started using the things I had learned in the business world to help. I taught reading skills. I took young people out to tour colleges and get through the maze of financial aid. A few times I thought I should just give up. I would never learn this. That call phone, though, kept ringing and ringing. And I thought, look, I'm busy. I'm doing things. I'm helping this one and this one and this one. I'm being a good ally, right? Finally. In March of 2009, I was finishing a nursing shift at this nursing home when an aide, a brave, proud, strong aide that I'd known for years, came running in, screaming for help. Young black man had been hurt very, very badly at the corner of our parking lot. There had been guns involved. It was bad. And another nurse and I ran out to help. We had almost no crisis bag, almost no equipment. We knew there was almost no chance. A neighbor stood in the street and told us he had called 911, but no one had come. So I asked the aide to call again, and she did. And she called again. And she called again. And she called again. And as we struggled there in the parking lot with the little equipment that we had, this brave, proud aide that I knew so well said to me, "Miss Amy, you call. You can sound white, please. You call." I had no words. I took that phone and I sounded the whitest I had ever sounded. A squad came within 5 minutes, accompanied by 2 police cars. The young man died while we were waiting. When the officers got there, they greeted me, very polite. And my best friend, who was in that ditch holding that young man, got told, "Hey, lady, get out of my crime scene." And without flinching, she said to him, "Until 5 minutes ago, your crime scene was someone's child." In my head, I picked up that phone. It isn't enough to help 111. It was time to take on a system of oppression and hatred. The next day, I called a UU seminary, and I began the process of enrolling. So I am called by human need, by a love for humanity which will not let me go. I'm called by my own experience and the bravery of those who have gone before me. I'm called by my heart to dream a less broken, an unbroken world into being, and by my rational mind to do the actual work that lets those breaks get fixed. Because we all are the heroes we have been waiting for, and no Calvary is coming. There's no magic going to descend. There's just us. And we are more than enough. We can change the world. And so I stand here today with my hand on that phone, ready to pick it up again. And to challenge you, let's pick that phone up together and let's change the world. Amen.